Scott Baker, managing editor of The Blaze, and just hanging out in the hallway here at Mercury Radio, and all of a sudden Brad Thor walked by, and actually I was more entranced by whoever is on the cover of this book. Did you pick the cover models for the Athena project?
No, my wife doesn't let me do that anymore.
No.
It's got to be a problem.
And I have a lot of questions, obviously, about the book and the four seductive stars of this book.
Okay. Soon
to be on a major motion picture screen near you. But can we start here and talk about some of the stuff that's happening today? Because obviously
Absolutely.
the WikiLeaks thing is big. Is it information like the new bomb?
Yeah, it's a great question. Probably what I think is the biggest story about the WikiLeaks thing. It's not, there wasn't anything explosive in there. It confirms a lot of what we knew or what we suspected.
Right.
It also tells us that WikiLeaks is not this anti-war group. They're an anti-American group. This is all about embarrassing America, about hamstringing America as best they can. But the big story for me, Scott, was how does this PFC, this Bradley Manning, get his hands on this much information? How do they let him walk in with a rewritable disk that he can shove in there and download all this stuff to?
And you know how he walked? It was labeled
Lady Gaga. And he admitted to lip syncing as he's downloading all this stuff.
Because if you wrote that into a thriller,
nobody believes
they would be like, come on.
No, that'd be it. People would say, oh, I got to that part and I closed it, because it would never happen. You know, it's funny, I talk a lot about Mark Twain. One of my favorite sayings from Mark Twain is the difference between fiction and reality is people expect fiction to make sense.
Right. So how are we going to see more of this stuff? I mean, and how? There's
only one way to stop it, and that is when he's found guilty, he's got to get the death penalty. That's the only way you're going to put a stop to it. It's the same, you know. I also said, and it won't necessarily put a stop to jihadism, but I also said that with Faisal Shahzad, the Times Square car bomber, he got 6 life sentences. This guy was a naturalized U.S. citizen who lied when he took the oath of citizenship. Why didn't we try him for treason? He went overseas with an enemy and trained to attack Americans. Why don't we smoke that guy? Why are we so reluctant to kill people who need killing?
Okay.
Thanks. Good night, everybody. Merry Christmas.
That's it. We're wrapped.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely true. And for a guy like you, it's got to be like, you know, every day is a new plot line. I mean,
it's the gift that keeps on giving. Unfortunately, it isn't always a good gift. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's certain things that I won't write about because I'm afraid that.
What?
Well, there's certain ideas for attacks and things like that.
Because you've had, I mean, plenty of strong material, stuff banned in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So you're telling me there's stuff that you say, I'm staying away from that.
There's certain things that I think are just, I spend a lot of time with people who are active in the intelligence world, in the military, law enforcement, and it's funny that if you're a fly on the wall, you pick up a lot of stuff. Not that they're sharing super high-end classified stuff that they shouldn't, but if you're around people who are at the tip of the spear long enough, you're going to hear A and you're going to hear C, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out what B is. And then they realize you got it, and they'll be like, you know what, you can't put that in the books. You can't talk about that. And I always respect that because these are the people who help me so much with these thrillers. These don't happen in a vacuum. These are based heavily on what's, you know, it's fiction. I compete with Clancy and Cussler and Ludlum, but they're as real as you're going to find anywhere in the marketplace.
And is the value, obviously you read a book like this, you enjoy it, it pulls you along, it can terrify you. That in a way, even though it's you know, Glenn was calling it faction, that it is a thriller, a thrill ride, that you actually can posit ideas and information that a vast number of people would have never engaged with had it been a nonfiction book.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I saw Glenn do a lot of that with the Overton window. Kind of this spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, if you will. Listen, my #1 job is to entertain people. I'm a thriller writer. So my job, I want you to read this book, whether you're on the ski slope, the beach, home for Christmas, whatever it is. I want you to read it. I want you to be able to give it and know that people you give it to are going to love it. But if I do that, I've done my job as a thriller author. That people love the book and, wow, I couldn't stop turning the pages fast enough. Obviously, you know, Warner Brothers is going to turn this into a big movie now. But the other thing is if you walk away saying, whoa, I didn't know that. I actually, really? And that's what Glenn says about my books, is that he reads like on his iPad, and he's constantly clicking over to Google to go, that can't be true. And then he's like, oh my God, I never heard that, it is true. And that's one of the things that he always, it's a high compliment that he pays me, but he says, Brad, I learned so much from your books that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so that, for me, if I can do that, then I've done my job as an American, because you've learned something about this country and what's going on.
Well, and you sort of get that right away in this book, and I'm only like maybe 10 chapters in, which was a problem because I was actually trying to run the Blaze last night and kept getting tempted to re-pick the book back. I was like, no, stop. But you're like, okay, really, there's going to be 4 hot chicks, you know, into some special secret unit, and you think that can't possibly be. But you're telling us that this
it's true. Well, first of all,
based in fact.
It is. So this is a book for men and for women. I will say that it's been incredible, the amount of feedback we've gotten from guys that are like, oh, this is awesome, and women saying awesome. And
this is a shift for you, for people that had
this I've got 9 other books in my Scott Harvath series, which are great, fun books, and this was a new series I was going to run parallel. I was doing 2 books. I write them, no co-writers, no. This is me, 100% me. But it was based on something I'd heard a couple years ago, that Delta Force had started haunting high-end female athletic events, particularly the triathlons in Hawaii, to recruit high-end female athletes to come be trained up, just like the Delta Force operatives, to go and do some of this nation's most dangerous business. It's all true.
Do you buy that? You really okay? All right. So and so you thought, all right, let's see if we could ever get a really successful new thriller franchise started that might also become like a really successful series of movies for sort of women doing the dangerous work of the world.
My thing is I love people who kick ass on behalf of this country.
Yes,
and when I found out that there was a new class of ass kickers, and they were extremely attractive, extremely athletic, and nobody's done this. Nobody has done this, and I thought, okay, this is just too cool. For me, it was so exciting. It's hard to find out information about these women because the Army denies they exist. But there are a couple of people. There were a couple of people who have actually worked with them that spoke with me way off the record. So there's a lot of interesting stuff in this book about these women, and it's exciting because they're patriots. They're out there doing some serious missions.
And now this has got to be exciting for you, because I mean, I know that in the Harvath series there are plans for movies, but this seemed to go quickly, where like they got the book and they were like, let's make a movie.
Well, what's interesting is Warner Brothers doesn't have a James Bond, they don't have a Jason Bourne, and they picked up we hadn't made the announcement yet, they picked up the Scott Harvath book. So Scott Harvath is going to be the Jason Bourne / James Bond for Warner Brothers. That's going to be their big action franchise. This, because I spoke about these women in a previous Harvath book, Warner Brothers, this was part of the package. So this book's brand new, and when Warner Brothers got it, word leaked out in the trades in Hollywood and then got picked up on all the blogs about this book. Everybody in Hollywood went nuts and called Warner Brothers and said, this Athena project, this is off the hook. How do I get my client, my actress, if you're an agent involved?
I heard Glenn lobbying for Jennifer Garner, and which...
Listen, I'm a big Jennifer Garner fan. I think she's got terrible taste in husband. I'm not a big Ben Affleck guy. I am not. I'm not shy about saying that. Alias used to be my favorite TV show. That does play a little bit into this, where I love Sigourney Weaver in Alien. That was originally written for a man, and they went against type for that. Sigourney Weaver, Ripley, was fabulous in that. Jennifer Garner, great in Alias. And I thought, you know what? Men don't mind female protagonists if they're out there kicking ass and taking names. And that's what I loved about doing this, is I said, you know what, I can do it with 4 women in the lead and still have men going, that's an awesome book, as well as women going, wow, it's great to finally see some really tough female leads.
This is Brad Thor's Charlie's Angels.
Without the comedy and without, what's-her-face, Drew Barrymore. I don't know how she got into that. I'm not a big Drew Barrymore fan. I'm sure she's a nice young lady. Wouldn't have been my first choice. But
what's the timetable? I mean, making movies takes a long time. So when do we get it?
It does. So they just picked up the rights to the books. It's a great question. It's something that I'm going to be going out to see everybody at Warner Brothers in the next couple of weeks here. So I will ask and I'll get back to you.
Good.
And you still wanted a part, right? I need to take your headshot out with me.
Well, I think the role of the intrepid blogger needs to be written into this, you know, somewhere, right? I think that would only be.
And we'll make sure you're there for the casting as well.
Exactly, right. Consulting.
Sure.
On all of this. What's how do you as a craft? Do you feel like you're really hitting your stride? Do you think your best book's still in front of you?
Absolutely. I always say I'm only as good as the last book I wrote.
Right.
And so I'm always trying to stretch myself to go further and to do more with each book that I do. I treat each book as if it's the first book I'm writing, and I don't have a publishing deal.
Right.
That I've got to wow the big
Right.
New York publishing house to get a contract.
Right.
So that's the way I approach it. I've always said I'm going to do this job as long as it's fun. As long as I'm turning out great product and people seem to enjoy it, I will keep doing it.
What's your drill? How do you write?
I write 5 days a week, and my goal is 2,500 words a day, which is about 5 single-space pages. I'd love to say that I get it done by noon and I can go fishing or whatever for the rest of the afternoon. But I'm usually in the office. 8 o'clock. I get there. I got a gym in my office. I'll work out, and then 9 to 6, I'm writing.
You're there, cranking it out.
Yeah, it's a job.
Who do you like to read? What do you do when you're not writing?
Well, you know what? I do a lot of reading, and with doing 2 books a year, it seems like I am reading the stack of books I've got to read going forward. Michael Walsh is a great thriller writer. I really enjoy Michael Walsh's stuff, and he had for a long time been one of Breitbart's editors.
Yeah, right.
Great guy. I like Michael Walsh. I really like Andy Peterson, who's another great up-and-coming author. Jim Rollins, Steve Barry, all buddies of mine, and I enjoy reading their stuff. But I'll tell you, the one book that I'm into right now is Broke, Glenn's book. I actually think it's the best book Glenn has ever written. All those facts, and I'm not a math guy, all of that stuff that should be hard to grasp and to keep in your head, all of it's sticking. All of that tough economic stuff, and it's actually fun to read. I would think it would be dry. Best Glenn book I've ever read.
We did not pay him to say that.
No, but it's true. 2 thumbs up.
Brad Thor, the Athena Project, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks,
Look
Scott.
forward to doing it again.
Thank you.